Love is supposed to weather the storm, but what happens when sickness reveals cracks in devotion? This is a raw confession of trust broken at the edge of survival, where betrayal stings worse than any illness. My name's Chris, I'm 32, and I'm a software engineer in Portland, Oregon. Until last year, I lived with my girlfriend, Linda, in a quirky loft downtown, surrounded by coffee shops and food carts. We'd been together 5 years, carving out a life of lazy brunches, biking along the Willamette, and dreaming about forever. I had a ring tucked away in a shoebox, waiting for the perfect evening to propose. Then, like a bad plot twist, I got leukemia. The diagnosis blindsided me. 1 minute I'm debugging code. The next I'm in a hospital bed, hooked to machines, doctors tossing around terms like chemotherapy and prognosis. My world shrank to blood tests and fear. Linda was my lifeline. She'd whip up lumpy mashed potatoes, her go-to comfort food, and sneak them into the hospital. She'd drive me to chemo, her hands squeezing mine as nausea rolled through me. When fevers left me shivering, she'd climb onto the narrow bed, whispering, "We've got this, Chris." Her hazel eyes, always so fierce, gave me something to hold on to. I'd never been the weak one before. Growing up in Boise, I was the kid who scaled fences, not the one who collapsed. But cancer didn't care about my stubborn streak. It tore me apart, and Linda was there, stitching me back together with her quiet strength. The hospital became my reality. Beeping monitors, antiseptic air, nurses with gentle but weary eyes. I'd lie awake, counting cracks in the ceiling to ignore the chemo burning my veins. Linda kept me sane. She'd read me dog-eared fantasy novels, her voice steady even when I dozed off. She'd text my sister, Jennifer, updates when I couldn't hold a phone. Jennifer flew in from Denver a few times, but Linda was my constant. I'd watch her, hunched in the visitor's chair, working remotely on her marketing projects, juggling her job and my illness. "You're incredible," I'd tell her. She'd flash a tired smile, brush her lips against my forehead, and say, "Just doing what you do for me." But last spring, something changed. I was admitted for a week after a fever spiked to 103. Linda seemed off, distant, like her mind was somewhere else. She'd slip out for work calls that dragged on. Her laughs felt hollow, her touches brief. I blamed exhaustion. Caring for someone sick is a grind. It wears you thin. I'd catch her staring out the window, eyes glassy, and guilt would hit me hard. I was the weight dragging her down. "Go home. Rest." I'd urge. She'd stay, but her presence felt like an echo of what it used to be. I didn't press her. I was too drained, too focused on not dying. One night, I needed to call Jennifer. My phone was dead, so I grabbed Linda's from the bedside table while she was in the cafeteria. A text notification flashed. Mark saying, "Miss you tonight, babe." My chest tightened. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. My thumb scrolled through months of texts, flirty quips, plans for coffee. While I was at chemo, a photo of them at a riverside cafe, her head tilted against his shoulder. One message from Linda gutted me. "I'm trapped. Mark, I love him, but this isn't a life." My hands trembled. The phone hit the bed. The woman I planned to marry was slipping into someone else's arms while I fought for every breath. I lay there, for dripping, heart pounding. Anger surged, hot and sharp, but grief hit harder. Was I too broken to love? Was my illness an excuse for her to run? The hospital room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Linda's betrayal wasn't just a knife. It was the slow twist of someone I trusted cutting me open. I didn't know how to face her, but I knew I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen it. The hospital room felt like a cage after I saw those texts. I stared at the phone. Mark's words, "Miss you tonight, babe," burning into my brain. Linda was due back any minute, her footsteps probably echoing down the hall. My body was weak, chemo sapping my strength, but my mind was a storm. How do you confront the person you love when you're tethered to and for, barely able to sit up? I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was clutch the bed rail, my knuckles white. The betrayal wasn't just in her words to Mark, it was in every moment she'd sat here, smiling, pretending she was still mine. I tried to piece it together. When did it start? Linda's text with Mark went back months to last fall, when my treatment intensified. I'd been in and out of the hospital, my hair gone, my weight dropping. She cried then, saying she was scared of losing me. Was that when she turned to him? Her coworker, some guy she'd mentioned in passing, Mark from the design team, always cracking jokes. I'd never met him, but now his face haunted me, conjured from that selfie, smug, leaning into her like he owned her. The thought made my stomach churn. Worse than any chemo side effect. I kept scrolling, torturing myself. Their coffee dates lined up with my worst days. When I was too sick to notice her absence, she'd text him about feeling trapped, about needing a break from the hospital. I wanted to hate her, but part of me understood. Caring for me was relentless, sleepless nights, endless appointments, my mood swinging from hope to despair. I'd seen her flinch when I snapped at her, tired and scared, but understanding didn't dull the pain. She could have talked to me, said she was struggling. Instead, she chose him. The door creaked open, and Linda walked in, holding a coffee cup. Her face softened when she saw me, but I must have looked like a ghost, pale, eyes locked on her phone. "Chris, you okay?" she asked, setting the cup down. Her voice was warm, but it felt like a lie. I held up the phone, my hand shaking. "Who's Mark?" My voice cracked, raw with anger and hurt. Her eyes widened, and she froze, like a deer caught in headlights. For a second, I thought she'd deny it, spin some story, but she didn't. She sank into the chair, covering her face with her hands. "Chris, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "It's not what you think." "Not what I think." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "So you didn't call him babe? Didn't tell him you're trapped with me?" My voice rose, and a nurse peeked in, but I waved her off. Linda's hands dropped, and I saw tears streaking her face. "I was overwhelmed," she said. "You were so sick, and I didn't know how to cope. Mark was just there. Just there, like that made it okay, like her loneliness justified tearing my heart out while I fought for my life." I wanted details, how far it went, if she loved him, but I couldn't stomach asking. Not yet. My head throbbed, and the monitors beeped faster, mirroring my pulse. "Did you ever think about me?" I asked, quieter now. "While you were with him, did you think about what this would do to me?" She sobbed, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. Her touch felt like a brand, marking me as the fool who trusted her. "I love you, Chris," she said. "I never stopped. I messed up." Love. The word felt hollow, a cheap bandage on a wound too deep to close. I turned my head, staring at the bag dripping into my arm. "I need you to leave," I said. She begged, her voice breaking, but I couldn't look at her. "Not now. Maybe not ever." She gathered her things, her sobs echoing as she left. The room was silent again. But the weight of her betrayal stayed, heavier than any diagnosis. I didn't know how to move forward, but I knew I couldn't stay in this moment, broken by someone I built my future around. The silence after Linda left was deafening. The hospital room, with its humming machines and faded curtains, felt emptier than ever. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the needle pinching my arm. My body was fighting cancer, but my heart was waging a different war. When I wasn't sure I could win, Linda's words echoed. "I love you, Chris. I just messed up." Messed up, like spilling coffee, not shattering 5 years of trust. I wanted to hate her, to burn away the pain with anger, but all I felt was a hollow ache, like part of me had walked out that door with her. I didn't sleep that night. The nurses came and went, checking my vitals, their soft voices blending into the background. I kept replaying the text I'd seen on her phone, Mark's flirty banter, Linda's replies, that photo of them together. I tortured myself with questions. How long had she been pulling away? Was every "I love you" a lie? I thought of the ring in my shoebox back home, now a cruel reminder of a future that didn't exist. I'd planned to propose after recovery, picturing us on a quiet Portland trail, her hazel eyes lighting up. Now, that dream felt like a bad joke. By morning, my fever had spiked again, and the doctor ordered another round of tests. I barely listened as she explained the results. My counts were low, but stable. Stable. Nothing in my life felt stable anymore. I texted my sister, Jennifer. "In Denver, Linda's been cheating. Can we talk?" My phone buzzed minutes later. "I'm booking a flight," she replied. Jennifer was always my rock, even from afar. Growing up, she'd patched me up after bike crashes and heartbreak. Now, at 32, I needed her more than ever. When Jennifer arrived 2 days later, I was still in the hospital, weaker but stubborn as hell. She walked in, her short brown hair messy from the flight, and hugged me so tight I winced. "You look like crap," she said, her voice teasing but her eyes worried. I spilled everything: Linda's affair, the texts, the confrontation. Jennifer listened, her jaw tight, occasionally muttering. What was she thinking? When I finished, she leaned back, folding her arms. "Chris, you don't need her. You're fighting for your life. She doesn't get to make that harder." Her words hit me, but they didn't erase the pain. I kept wondering if I'd failed Linda somehow. Had I been too needy? Too sick to notice her struggling? Jennifer shut that down fast. "Don't you dare blame yourself," she said. "She chose to betray you instead of talking it out. That's on her." I nodded, but doubt lingered. Cancer had already made me feel like less of a man, bald, frail, dependent. Linda's affair was another blow, whispering I wasn't enough. Jennifer stayed in Portland, crashing at my apartment and visiting daily. She brought me takeout from my favorite food cart, spicy pad thai that I could barely keep down but craved anyway. She'd tell me about her life in Denver, her job as a graphic designer. Anything to distract me, but my mind kept drifting to Linda. She texted me a few times. "Can we talk?" "I'm so sorry." I didn't reply. I couldn't yet. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand why she'd turned to Mark. The other part wanted to forget she existed. One afternoon, a nurse handed me a letter. Linda had dropped it off. My hand shook as I opened it. Her handwriting, usually so neat, was messy, like she'd been crying. "Chris, I know I hurt you. I was selfish, scared, lost. I'll do anything to fix this. Please, let me explain." I read it twice, then folded it away. Her words stirred something: anger, sure, but also grief for what we'd lost. I didn't know if I could forgive her, or if I even wanted to try, but I knew one thing. I had to focus on surviving, not just for me, but to prove I was stronger than her betrayal. The hospital days dragged on, each one a battle against my body and my heart. Jennifer's presence grounded me, but Linda's shadow lingered. I wasn't ready to face her, but I couldn't escape the questions. Could I ever trust again? And how do you rebuild when the person you loved most tore you apart? The hospital days blurred into a haze of beeps and blood draws, but Linda's letter burned a hole in my mind. I kept it tucked in the bedside drawer, unopened since that first read. Part of me wanted to rip it up, erase her words, but another part clung to it. Like it held answers I wasn't ready to face. My body was fighting leukemia, but my heart was stuck on her, on why she'd chosen Mark, why she'd let me believe we were still us. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo of them at the cafe, her head on his shoulder, and it felt like a fresh cut. Jennifer noticed my mood tanking. She'd sit by my bed, flipping through magazines or scrolling on her phone, trying to keep things light. "You need to eat more of this," she'd say, pushing a carton of pad thai toward me. I'd poke at it, my appetite gone. One evening, she leaned forward, her voice firm. "Chris, you can't let her steal your fight. You're stronger than this." I wanted to believe her, but strength felt like a foreign concept. Cancer had stripped me down, and Linda's betrayal finished the job. I was a shell, going through the motions of survival. The doctors were optimistic. My counts were improving, and they started talking about discharge soon. But the idea of going back to our apartment, where Linda's stuff was still scattered, made my chest tight. Jennifer offered to clear it out, let me handle it. She said, "You don't need to see her yoga mat or her coffee mugs." I nodded, grateful but ashamed. I hated being this fragile guy who needed his sister to clean up his life. Growing up, I was the one who fixed things: bikes, fights, mom's old computer. Now, I couldn't even face my own home. A week later, I was still in the hospital, waiting for clearance. Linda texted again. "I'm moving out. Can we talk before I go?" I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Jennifer, who'd been crashing at my place, told me Linda had started packing. "She's leaving your stuff alone," she said, "but she's a mess." Chris keeps crying. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction. She should hurt. But mostly, I felt empty. 5 years of love, of building a life, and now she was boxing it up like it meant nothing. I finally replied, "Not yet. I need time." It was all I could manage. Her response came fast. "I understand. I'm here when you're ready." Ready? I didn't know what that word meant anymore. I wasn't ready to forgive, to forget, or to face her without falling apart. But I couldn't keep hiding in this hospital bed, either. The nurses were starting to wean me off the heavy meds, and my energy was creeping back. I'd catch myself imagining life after this, coding again, maybe hiking again. But every time, the thought of Linda intruded, tainting it. One night, alone in my room, I pulled out her letter again. Her words were desperate, messy. I was scared, Chris. I didn't know how to handle you being so sick. Mark was an escape, not a replacement. An escape, like I was a prison. I wanted to believe she didn't mean it, that stress broke her. But the truth was colder. She'd chosen to run instead of fight for us. I folded the letter, my hand steadier now. Anger was starting to edge out the grief. Not replacing it, but giving me something to hold on to. Jennifer brought me a new notebook, saying, "Write it down, all the crap in your head." I started jotting thoughts, random, jagged things about Linda, about cancer, about who I was now. It wasn't poetic, just raw. I trusted her with my life, and she gave her heart to someone else. Writing didn't fix me, but it felt like a step, like I was clawing back control. The hospital wasn't my cage anymore. It was a battleground, and I was still fighting. Linda's betrayal had knocked me down, but I wasn't out. Not yet. The hospital finally released me, and I stepped into Portland's damp air, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Jennifer drove me to my apartment, her chatter about new food carts filling the silence. The place looked wrong without Linda's clutter. No yoga mat in the corner, no half-empty coffee mugs. Jennifer had packed her stuff into boxes, now stacked in a storage unit. "I didn't let her touch your things," Jennifer said, handing me a beer. I nodded, but the apartment felt hollow, like a set for a play I didn't want to star in anymore. I was still weak, my body a patchwork of aches from chemo, but being home gave me a spark of control. I shuffled to the bedroom, avoiding the shoebox where the ring still hid. I couldn't look at it, not yet. Instead, I opened the notebook Jennifer gave me and wrote, "I'm alive, but I don't know who I am without her." It sounded dramatic, but it was true. Linda had been my anchor, my future. Now, she was a ghost, haunting every corner of this place. Days bled into weeks. I was on maintenance chemo, outpatient now, which meant long days at the hospital but nights at home. Jennifer stayed on, sleeping on my couch, her presence a lifeline. She'd cook, badly, and we'd laugh about her burnt pancakes. But laughter didn't erase the ache. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, expecting Linda's name to pop up. Even though I'd blocked her number after her last text, I didn't want her apologies, but I missed her voice, her laugh, the way she'd hum off key while cooking. One evening, Jennifer dragged me to a food cart pod near Hawthorne. "You need air," she said. The smell of tacos and fried dumplings hit me, and for a moment, I felt normal. But then I saw a couple at a picnic table, her head on his shoulder, and my chest tightened. Was that what Linda and Mark looked like? I pushed the thought away, focusing on Jennifer's story about a client's ridiculous logo demands. She was trying so hard to pull me back to life, and I loved her for it. But I wasn't there yet. At my next chemo session, I overheard a nurse mention Linda. "She stopped by last week, asking about you," she said, then caught herself, embarrassed. I shrugged it off, but it stung. Linda was still circling, leaving traces of herself in my world. I wanted to ask what she'd said, but pride stopped me. Instead, I wrote in my notebook, "She's gone, but she's everywhere. How do I escape someone I still love?" The words felt like a confession, one I'd never say out loud. My doctor was pleased. My counts were holding steady, and remission was in sight. "You're a fighter, Chris," she said. I didn't feel like one. Surviving cancer was one thing. Surviving Linda was another. I started noticing how anger was fueling me. Every time I thought of her with Mark, I'd push harder, eat better, walk a little farther, code a few lines. I'd always been stubborn, but now it was personal. I wasn't just fighting to live. I was fighting to prove I didn't need her. Jennifer suggested therapy, and I laughed it off at first. "I'm not that guy," I said. But late at night, when the apartment was too quiet, I wondered if she was right. My thoughts were a mess, anger, grief, guilt, all tangled up. I blamed myself sometimes. If I hadn't gotten sick, would Linda have stayed? Was I too weak, too much of a burden? But then I'd remember her texts, her choice to run to Mark instead of talking to me. That wasn't my fault. I wrote it down. "She broke us. Not me. I'm allowed to be angry. By the end of the month, I was coding again, small projects to keep my brain sharp. It felt good, like reclaiming a piece of myself. But every step forward came with a glance back. I wasn't ready to forgive Linda, but I couldn't stop loving her, either. That contradiction was my new reality, and I had to figure out how to live with it or let it go. The Portland rain was relentless, drumming against my apartment windows as I tried to rebuild my life. I was coding more now, taking on freelance gigs to feel useful. My body was slowly coming back, hair starting to grow, strength creeping in it. But my heart lagged behind. Linda's betrayal was a shadow, following me through every small victory. I'd catch myself wondering what she was doing, if she was with Mark, if she regretted it. Those thoughts were poison, but I couldn't always stop them. Jennifer was still crashing on my couch, though she'd started talking about heading back to Denver. "You're doing better, Chris," she said one morning, stirring coffee that smelled like burnt toast. "I can't babysit you forever." She grinned, but I saw worry in her eyes. I didn't want her to go. She'd been my buffer against the quiet, the moments when Linda's absence hit hardest. But I knew she had a life to get back to, and I couldn't keep leaning on her. One afternoon, I finally opened the shoebox. The ring sat there, simple and silver, mocking me. I'd picked it out 2 years ago, imagining Linda's face when I proposed. Now, it was just metal, heavy with what-ifs. I closed the box and shoved it into a drawer. I wasn't ready to sell it or toss it, but I couldn't keep staring at it either. I wrote in my notebook, "The ring's still here, but the promise is gone. Why can't I let it go?" Writing was becoming my outlet, a way to untangle the mess in my head. My chemo sessions were less grueling now, spaced out, giving me more time to breathe. I started walking around my neighborhood, past food carts and bookstores, reclaiming Portland as mine, but every corner held memories of Linda, us grabbing tacos, browsing vinyl records, laughing under umbrellas. I hated how she'd tainted the city I loved. I thought about moving, maybe to Boise to be near Mom, but running felt like letting her win. This was my home, and I wasn't giving it up. A coworker from my old job reached out, offering me a part-time remote gig. It was a lifeline, a chance to feel normal. I dove in, losing myself in code for hours. But at night, the quiet crept back, and with it, thoughts of Linda. I unblocked her number, not to text her, but to see if she'd try again. She didn't. That hurt more than I expected. Had she moved on? Was Mark her future now? I wrote, "She's silent, and it's louder than her apologies ever were." One evening, Jennifer dragged me to a dive bar for trivia night. "You need to get out," she insisted. I went, mostly to shut her up. The bar was loud, packed with hipsters and neon signs. I sipped a ginger ale, my stomach still too fragile for beer. A woman at the next table smiled at me, and I froze. She was just being friendly, but it felt like a betrayal of Linda, of myself. I wasn't ready for that world again. Trust felt like a language I'd forgotten. Later, Jennifer asked if I'd considered therapy again. This time, I didn't laugh it off. "Maybe," I said. She nodded, like she'd won a small victory. I was starting to see her point. My head was a battlefield, and I needed help sorting through the wreckage. Linda's affair wasn't just a moment. It was a wound that kept bleeding. I needed to figure out how to heal, not for her, but for me. The next day, I called a therapist recommended by my doctor. The appointment was a week away, and just booking it felt like a step. I wrote, "I'm not fixed, but I'm trying. That's enough for now." My fight wasn't just against cancer anymore. It was against the part of me that still loved Linda, that wondered if I could have saved us. But I was learning something. I didn't need to save us to save myself. I was enough, broken pieces and all. And I was going to keep fighting for the guy I saw in the mirror, not the one Linda left behind. The therapist's office smelled like lavender and had too many plants, but it was quiet, a break from the chaos in my head. My first session was awkward. I sat on a lumpy couch, fumbling through my story. Leukemia, Linda, Mark, the text that gutted me. Dr. Ellis, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, didn't push. She just asked, "What do you want for yourself, Chris?" I didn't have an answer. For months, I'd been surviving, not living, but saying it out loud felt like cracking open a door I'd kept locked. Back in my Portland apartment, I was finding a rhythm. Jennifer had gone back to Denver, leaving a void but also a challenge. Figure this out on my own. I was coding more, the part-time gig turning into a steady anchor. My chemo was down to monthly check-ins, and my doctor kept using words like remission and progress. Physically, I was climbing back, but Linda's shadow clung to me. I'd walk past our old brunch spot and feel a pang, not just for her, but for who I was before, carefree, certain love was enough. I kept writing in my notebook, spilling thoughts I couldn't say aloud. I hate her, but I miss her. How do I stop loving someone who broke me? Dr. Ellis called it grief, not just for the relationship, but for the trust I'd lost. She had me list what I'd loved about Linda, her laugh, her stubborn streak, how she'd dance in the kitchen. Then she asked what I'd hated, her silence, her choice to run to Mark. It was the first time I saw her as human, not a villain or a saint. It didn't fix the hurt, but it made it less sharp. One morning, I got an email from a mutual friend. Tara, Linda's been asking about you, she wrote. She's not with Mark anymore. My heart did a weird flip, relief, anger, curiosity. I didn't reply, but it stirred something. Was Linda alone now, like me? Did she regret it? I brought it up in therapy, and Dr. Ellis asked, does her life change yours? It was a gut punch. I've been letting Linda's choices define me, even now. I wrote, her mistakes aren't my story. I get to write my own. I started small. I rearranged the apartment, moving furniture to erase the layout Linda and I had shared. I bought new sheets, ones she'd never touched. I even cooked, badly, trying recipes Jennifer had left. It wasn't about forgetting Linda. It was about making space for me. I took longer walks, pushing my body past the fatigue. One evening, I made it to Forest Park, the trail damp and green. I stood there, breathing hard, and felt a flicker of pride. I was still here, still fighting. But nights were harder. I'd lie awake, wondering if I'd ever trust again. Linda's affair had rewired me. Every smile from a stranger felt like a potential lie. Dr. Ellis suggested I focus on trusting myself first. You survived cancer and heartbreak, she said. That's evidence you're stronger than you think. I clung to that, repeating it when doubt crept in. I started reconnecting with friends, grabbing coffee with Tara or beers with old coworkers. They didn't pry, just welcomed me back. And it reminded me I wasn't just the sick guy or the betrayed guy. One day, I pulled the ring from its drawer. It didn't hurt as much to look at now. I took it to a jeweler, not to sell, but to turn it into something else. A pendant, maybe. I wasn't sure yet. It felt symbolic. Like I was reshaping my past into something I could carry without breaking. I wrote, the ring isn't her anymore. It's me, moving forward. Therapy was helping me see that healing wasn't linear. Some days, I'd rage at Linda's memory. Others, I'd miss her so much it hurt. But I was learning to live with both. Portland spring was creeping in. Buds on trees, less rain. I felt like I was budding too slow, unsteady, but alive. Linda was still a scar, but she wasn't the whole of me. I was Chris, 32, a coder, a survivor, a guy figuring out what came next. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Spring in Portland brought longer days, and I was starting to feel like I could breathe again. My chemo was officially done, and my doctor slapped a remission label on me. Though she warned it came with checkups and caution, I stood in her office, gripping the discharge papers, and felt a weight lift. Not all of it, but enough to notice I wasn't just a patient anymore. I was Chris, piecing myself back together, one shaky step at a time. But Linda's betrayal still lingered, a bruise that ached. When I pressed it, therapy with Dr. Ellis was my compass. We dug into trust, how Linda's affair had shattered mine, not just in her, but in everyone. You don't have to trust the world yet, Dr. Ellis said. Start with small things. So I did. I trusted my body to carry me through a jog in Laurelhurst Park. I trusted friends to show up for board game nights. I trusted myself to code without second-guessing every line. Each choice was a brick, rebuilding what Linda had broken. I'd turned the ring into a pendant, a simple silver circle on a chain. I didn't wear it often, but holding it reminded me I could reshape pain into something new. My notebook was filling up, pages of raw thoughts. I'm not who I was with her. But I'm not nothing. I'm enough. Writing let me scream without sound, grieve without falling apart. I shared some of it with Dr. Ellis, and she nodded like I'd cracked a code. You're claiming your story, she said. That stuck with me. Work was steady now, my remote gig expanding into bigger projects. I'd sit at my desk, Portland's skyline peeking through the window, and lose myself in code. It was familiar, a part of me Cancer and Linda couldn't touch. My coworkers invited me to happy hours, and I started going, not every time, but enough to feel human again. One night, a designer named Sam joked about my ginger ale addiction, and I laughed, really laughed. For the first time in months, it caught me off guard. Like I'd forgotten I could. Linda's name came up less, but she wasn't gone. Tara mentioned her once, saying she'd moved to a new apartment, alone. I didn't ask for details, but the news settled like dust. She was living her life, and I was living mine. I didn't hate her anymore, not like before. It was more like sadness, heavy but manageable. Dr. Ellis called it acceptance, but I wasn't sure. I still dreamed about her sometimes, her hazel eyes soft like they used to be. I'd wake up angry, then sad, then just tired. I wrote, I don't want her back, but I miss who we were. Is that okay? I started volunteering at a cancer support group, not to dwell, but to give back. Sharing my story, leukemia, heartbreak, survival, felt like shedding skin. The group listened, nodded, shared their own scars. One guy, older, said, Betrayal's a kind of cancer too. You cut it out, but it leaves marks. He was right. Linda's affair was a scar, not a wound anymore. I could live with it. One evening, walking home from the group, I stopped at a food cart and ordered tacos. The air was warm, the city alive with buskers and bikes. I sat on a bench, eating, watching people pass. For the first time, I didn't scan for Linda's face in the crowd. I didn't need to. I was here, alive, whole in a way I hadn't been in years. I pulled out my notebook and wrote, I'm not fixed, but I'm free. That's my victory. Remission didn't mean cured, and neither did healing. I'd have checkups for years, and Linda's memory would pop up uninvited. But I wasn't fighting her anymore. I was fighting for me, for the guy who coded through chemo, who laughed with friends, who ran in the rain. I didn't know if I'd love again, but I knew I could. That was enough. Portland stretched out before me, my city, my story. I wasn't the man Linda left, and I was glad. I was Chris, 32, a survivor, and I was ready for whatever came. Next,